I still don't have what it takes. I must train harder. This time, victory is mine. Hadouken! This time, victory is mine. Hadouken! Shinku Hadouken! I still don't have what it takes. I must train harder. This time, victory is mine. Hadouken! The answer lies in the heart of battle. Hadouken! Shoryuken! Shoryuken! This time, victory is mine. Hadouken! Shinku Hadouken!
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You are listening to episode 123 for the week of May. Oh, shit, it's April. April 25th, 2021. I'm your host, Drew. I am joined by Will, who never gets the date wrong. What's up, Will?
What is up, Drew?
Dude,
How are you, man?
I kind of botched the intro. I usually say, hey, everybody, and I just defaulted to my old, pro wrestling intro by
You know
accident.
what you're missing too?
Hmm.
You're missing an Italian calendar.
You're right.
You
Well,
know?
I have a window here,
Okay.
and I have 27-inch monitors here, and I have no wall here or here. So where would I put it?
Maybe if you got one of those like little desk calendars where you rip off the pages, like something like yay big,
I could do that.
you know,
I could do
and
that.
still have it be like little miniature images of Venice. Venice for January, and then,
Uh,
Positano for February. Because you're an Italian guy. You're 100% Italian. You're going there next week. It makes total sense.
I don't have a single ounce of Italian in me.
I know. You're better off with a Scottish or a Scotland
Uh,
calendar.
I would. Oh man, I want to go there so bad.
Dude, you and me both, man. We should try to unite the families, or just you and I go, and we're just like, all right, wives, we'll be
Mm-hmm.
back in a couple weeks, but
Yep.
Drew and I need to do this. We need to see the William Wallace statue.
Mm.
We need to try and pull the sword out.
Yep.
I don't know. We got to do some cool stuff.
Got to carry those giant stones across the bridge. You know which ones I'm talking about. What the fuck are they called? But they're like 800 pounds each.
Yeah, or like huck one of those giant telephone poles.
Yeah, I want to do that. I want to take the whiskey trail, the Scotch journey that they. Oh man, you ever see Parks and Rec?
Segments.
All right, so there's this one episode where Leslie gives Ron Swanson a very special gift, and it is a solitary tour of the Lagavulin distillery.
Mm.
And nobody else is with him. It's just him, and it's just like, I want that. I just want that. I just
I
want
gotta
it.
say that the Ron Swanson character, I do admire his performance in that
Yeah,
show.
yeah, he's great, man. So what is going on, man? This is your last week in
It,
your homestead here.
it is. I mentioned it to you earlier today because I suddenly thought about it. I was like, wait, this is the last show I'm doing in
Mm,
this office, in this household,
mm-hmm.
and it feels really strange, man. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time now.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is the last one I'm doing here is just kind of a bizarre feeling to have.
Are you excited though?
I am, man. I think Laura and I are definitely ready to move on, and
Mm,
we're just ready for our own place, man, that we could just be a little bit more free and um, have some more privacy and have those beautiful amenities and,
mm,
get into this new studio room that I'm building. So
mm-hmm,
I'll
mm-hmm.
probably have to do some behind the scenes footage on that room because thankfully she's letting me do whatever I want with it, which is
Uh,
really incredible. It's like winning the lottery.
oh man, when you get your wife to sign off on something like that, that's a good day.
It's a very good day because normally, as you know, man, everything has to be mutual or you have
Absolutely.
to run it by them and completely okay with that rule. It's what you
That's
sign up for.
yeah.
But when, thankfully, because I do music and because I do this podcast and they're both really important to me, I think she understands that. And she's like, you know what? I don't really use an office, so I'm just gonna let him have it. And I was like, you could do whatever you want with the other rooms in the house. Like you want to dress up the bedroom, you want to put some nice canvas prints of, flowers and stuff in the living room,
Yeah.
go for it. Go for it.
Wow. And uh, I get to see it
You
this
get to see
weekend.
it.
I get to help you move.
Dude,
And
I'm excited, man.
I haven't seen you since the summer, right? When was it when we got together? It was like July or August
Oh my God, has it been that
or
long?
maybe September.
I think it was towards the end of last year,
When
like right before winter.
when did the tree fall in your house?
Oh boy. I think I saw you after that though. So
Oh,
the tree fell on my house, I want to say smack dab middle of the summer. So I think that was like July or August
right.
of last year. And then I think I came over to your place for a get together, I want to say after that.
Maybe.
Could be wrong,
Maybe.
but it's well, you know what? I did
Mm.
because you saw my new car.
Yes. Labor Day.
So yeah, that's when I saw you last. I was at your place. We had a good old time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, you're going to be helping me move, but we're still kind of hanging out at the same time. And
Yeah.
to be able to have my co-host help me move
Hell yeah, man.
is such an honor, and it's I get an excuse to see a friend as well. It's not like I'm just seeing like, hey, Joe and Bob, the movers down the street, you know. Yeah,
Oh, man.
you ever hear of that moving company? It's like two sons or my three boys or
Yeah.
my three sons or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not using them.
Well,
I'm using the Casalegos.
Casa Legos, sir.
Casalegos, okay. We were saying Casalegos, and I was like, what does this mean? And then Lauren's like, it's their last names combined. And I'm like,
Yeah.
aha.
Yeah. We do Casa Lego because Kosalik and Grego, and Nikki didn't take my last name. So that's like our running joke, Casa Lego.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, Lauren is equally as excited as I am to see you guys and to have, the privilege of working with the two of you, people that we know personally and well, to help us with such an important day. So thank you.
Very glad to be there, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of game stuff to talk about today, so I'm going to pivot into that. Before we get started, let's just talk about our website, our how they can find us, shall we?
Yes.
All right, so be sure to check us out on the web. First of all, www.wdgrpodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at WDGR Podcast. Will, how can the dear listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me on soundcloud.com/will_gear.
And of course, you can find me on Twitter at ScionStorm. And we have a Patreon that is going to be launching on May 1st. That's just days from now when we're recording this. Patreon.com/WDGR podcast. I don't have a lower third for that yet, but that link is going to start popping up in feeds pretty soon. And it's going to be a lot of fun, man. I think we got some great stuff people will be interested in checking out.
Yeah, I'm over the moon about it, man. This has been a venture of ours that we've wanted to put into motion for quite some time now, and we're here. It's launching on the day that I move, which is kind of ironic. But we've got that all set up. And yeah, man, I'm just really excited for the future of it. And, I think it's a really cool little venture of ours, and it's going to be fun.
Yep. And anybody that's interested in checking out the Patreon, each month we will be releasing a Patreon exclusive podcast where we take a look at a video game movie and talk about it in depth. For the month of May, it's going to be Street Fighter, the 1994 classic starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, Raul Julia, Kylie Minogue, Ming-Na Wen, and a bunch of other buffoons. So, there it is. He's got the bicep up. He's got the bicep.
That's like the signature Van Damme pose is like, I think it's like, I can't do it. It's like something like that. But like clearly he must have looked in the mirror one day and he did that. He's like, man, that shows off every muscle in my arm.
Give me one of those, one more bicep. Come on.
Okay.
Let me see what we got here. Yeah, I got you full screen on that.
But he's always got like the most suave face. It's always like,
yeah.
And you look at it and you're like, this is so ridiculous, but damn, I want to be him.
Oh man, if you are a child of the 80s and you did not want to be Jean-Claude Van Damme, you wanted to be with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I was that kid.
Yeah.
I was that kid, growing up, watching Bloodsport with my dad on TV and commercials and all, and then eventually owning it on DVD. And I was like, man, I want to look like him one day. I want to be like him.
Yeah.
And, those are just your sort of childhood teenage fantasies of wanting to look and act like Jean-Claude Van Damme, a dude from Belgium, of all places.
In the Twitch chat, Epic Outro has already spoken his first blasphemous line of the night. I was never a huge fan.
I mean, hey, it's all you, man. But if I could have a statue of that dude in my house, I probably would have it. I would probably have it with like a little button that had a sound effect where he's like, like that whole thing that he does in Bloodsport all the time. The accentuated screams.
Oh God, I between him and Steven Seagal, movies. Man, I 80s and 90s are just great.
They were absolutely classic, and
Yeah.
I just miss having my dad around, like watching that kind of stuff with him because it was such a father and son thing to do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Saturday at 2:30 in the afternoon, you're just watching like Hard Target and stuff.
Love it, man. All right, so let's talk about some games, shall we? Have you been playing anything at all?
Yeah, still been working on Bioshock Infinite for Game Club,
Yep. Yep.
which has been a lot of fun. It's an incredibly interesting game, and without going into detail, it's quite something, man. It's you got to have a stomach for it,
Yeah.
and there's some pretty controversial subject matter in there. So I think I'm gonna leave it at that. But I think I'm almost done with it.
Do you know
And,
how far along you are?
I think I'm on chapter 28.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. I got to check again, but I feel like I'm close to the end.
There are 40 chapters from what we've discerned on the Discord, and I don't know if your copy is lining up the way mine does, but some of those chapters don't exactly line up perfectly. I've been using like the top of the screen. It'll tell you when you go into a new area, like what that chapter is. And a lot of times what I'm seeing on the 360 version of the game doesn't match what our checklist has in the Discord room. But every once in a while it does line up. And I'm near the end game for sure.
Okay.
Like if I didn't do other stuff, I probably could have beaten the game today. So I'm thinking I'm going to put a pin in that this week, probably before Saturday.
That's my goal too, is if I can get this done and wrapped up by Thursday evening, that is my goal. And I think I'm probably going to do it because tonight we've got something to do after the show, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are pretty open.
Yeah.
So I have a good shot at this, and that would be perfect because it's right at the end of the month. I'll be done with it.
Yeah. The game has some kind of like deceiving parts to it as far as the way it flows. It like you'll be in one chapter and it'll just it'll seem like it takes forever, and the next thing you know, you're done with it, and you're also done with like 4 more. So it's kind of bizarre how that works out, but for the most part, though, I mean, it's got a pretty steady flow. I like the story. I'm not gonna get into too much right now because we want to save that for our game club discussion. But you know, it's an engaging plot that doesn't really it doesn't let up. No, it's consistently in your face, pushing you along. And man, like it really just it's some heavy shit.
It is, and it really is unlike anything else I've ever played.
Yeah.
You know, I've compared it to this sort of frightening dream, and that's kind of what it is at times, especially when you're in that sort of that cloud city in the beginning.
Yep. Just a quick comment from our Twitch room. Son of a Fitch says his cat has some comments to say as well, too.
Dude, I had a feeling that was a typo. I was like, that's not a thing.
So for the listeners on the audio-only feed, Son of a Fitch left the letters K, period, MKK. And I thought he was talking about Mortal Kombat for a second. But apparently it was the cat. Last Son of Bob is coming to the aid of the cat, saying the cat is innocent. So thank you for defending the cat, Last Son of Bob. We appreciate it. I have been playing baseball, Will. I've been playing MLB The Show 21. Side note, I went to my first Mets game of the season yesterday, and we won. We beat the Nationals 4-0.
Ooh.
It was a great game. I ate,
and you had a pastrami sandwich.
Dude, I had more than just a pastrami sandwich. I only shared the pastrami sandwich.
Dude, I need to segue in real quick because this is going to make you laugh, okay?
Oh, boy.
So you went on, it was yesterday, right?
Correct.
So I went on our Instagram for the podcast because I needed to look something up. And I went to the search thing and I saw a search that said like amazing. It said amazing Mets snacks or something.
Yeah.
And I started laughing so hard. I was like, oh my God, it's true. He's at the game. He probably saw an advertisement that said, go to this link.
I went under. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I found, like, I was looking up trying to find like where to find like some of the best food at the stadium. and I was under the wrong Instagram handle when I searched for it.
Amazing. It didn't even say amazing. It was
Well,
amazing Mets food.
That's the Amazing Mets. That's how they
Oh,
do it.
that's like a thing.
That's a thing.
That's a thing.
That's
Okay.
a thing. Yeah, yeah. So, and apparently that's like their official like Instagram handle for the food. The food at the park has its own Instagram handle.
Well, I
Oh,
didn't
man.
even click on it. I just looked at it and I just chuckled so hard.
Yeah.
I was like, that's absolutely true of the game right now.
I didn't see this at the park. They had a lot of stuff closed down because they're at like 25% capacity with the pandemic. But apparently there's an ice cream vendor there that puts alcohol in the ice cream. So you can
I
get
didn't
like
know that was a thing.
you can get like this big ass waffle cone and the ice cream is all infused with booze.
Ooh.
So go back to that Instagram page and click on some of those photos and then say to me, Drew, let's go to a game. And I'll be like, yeah, let's go.
Get that amazing food.
There's some good shit there, man. But anyway, yeah, MLB The Show is if you're into sports games and you're into simulations, MLB The Show as a franchise has been historically one of the best ones you could possibly play. Sony has had their hands on this. It's their studio, San Diego Studios, since the inception of the game back in 2006, I want to say, is when they started doing the show. But in any case, they've made a reputation for themselves as being the de facto baseball game. Unfortunately, because it was a Sony studio producing it, the only place that you've been able to play this game up to this point has been on the PlayStation. Now, I do have a copy of MLB The Show 18 on my PlayStation 4. And last year, when there was no baseball, I put the game on simulation mode, AI versus AI, and I just sat back and watched the game just to get the feels. And it was pretty damn close, man. Like, it's that close to the real thing. So when they announced that they were coming to Xbox with it, I was pretty excited. And one of the most exciting things was that they were bringing it to the next gen consoles. Now, I thought there was a chance that we were going to get the game last year, and I guess they needed an extra year. So they developed it this year with the PS5 and the Series X in mind. And I got to say, from a graphical standpoint, I'm a little disappointed in the quality of the game. Sure, it's very shiny. There's a lot of, I don't know if it's ray tracing per se, but you get a lot of reflections. The stadiums and everything looks great. But the character models are the same character models that they've been using for a few years. And it definitely shows, especially when you go to a segment where there's like an interviewer who's talking on screen. And their mouth kind of moves like all kind of clunky and weird. Like the teeth don't really fit in the mouth. You know what I mean? Like that kind of weird animation. So it's a little jarring. But outside go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I noticed that because I'm watching a gameplay review just muted as you speak about the game, which I often do, so I can understand what you're saying. And I can see that. I would have expected this to look a little bit better. I mean, it looks really good. But some of the things you just mentioned are definitely apparent. Yeah,
and it's I wanted to have a video loaded for the stream, and I was unable to get it to cooperate with my setup, unfortunately. But they haven't really done anything revolutionary with the game. And as Son of a Fitch noted in the chat just now, sports games need competition or else they'll look the same for a decade. And he's right. Now, to be fair, MLB The Show is the best baseball game. However, it's also the only baseball game. There's really not much in the way of MLB games outside of like maybe a couple arcade kind of batty things and like, mobile games, right? This is the only true like baseball simulation game, and it is thorough. There are half a dozen different types of modes that you can play. There's online competitive play, there's ranked, there's unranked. There's like a managerial mode. There's a dynasty mode. There's a create your own character. There's a create your own stadium. There's all kinds of shit you could do with this game. But at the core, you're throwing pitches and swinging bats. And I think that's where the game more or less nails it. But it's not 100% perfect. They've introduced a new pitching mode this year called pinpoint pitching. And what they're trying to do is in their way, simulate the cadence of a wind-up and a pitch, right? And every pitcher has a different rhythm to it. If you're watching a guy like Jacob deGrom, who just threw a game with 15 strikeouts last week, which is like actually record-setting. He has a different cadence than, every other pitcher in the league, and their cadence may change over the course of a game, whether they're stressed out, if they're tired. So this pinpoint pitching mode is supposed to emulate that by basically, let's say you want to throw a fastball. You'll see the meter shows you how you're supposed to move your right thumbstick. So it'll go for a fastball, for the most part, it's down, up, you hold it, and then as you're about to throw, you drop it down again. And there's circles that you're trying to hit. And it's measuring your speed, your accuracy, and how quickly it's not necessarily about how fast you do that movement. It's about how accurate you do it. So the pace might be down, up, down.
Okay.
And if you do it down, up, down, you're going to botch the pitch, right? The next pitcher might have a completely different cadence for the same exact pitch. And then it starts to get a little bit more complicated when you're throwing like curveballs or, sliders, things like that. Maybe it's a diagonal kind of circle and then down, or maybe it's like a letter G, right? You go over this way, you come up and then down. So it kind of keeps it interesting. But I don't know if it's just me or the controller, or maybe it's because I'm on Xbox, but I feel like I'm trying to color in between the lines and I've had like way too much caffeine. Because it'll show you where your tracing is, and it's like all jagged and crooked and stuff. And I'm like pitching over here, and over here, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I dumbed it down to like classic mode, which basically is put a dot in the box, press a button, and then you throw. And that's been working pretty well for me so far. As far as hitting goes, well, I just feel like a dope with that too, because I can't hit for nothing.
Oh no.
I have just like spent more time striking out than anything, and I just can't get the rhythm of it down, and I don't know what it is. Hitting has always been challenging for me in these games, but I did way better in the 2018 game than I have been doing here. And I have game mode and all the works turned on my TV, and I would think that it would actually be helping out, and I don't know, something's not right.
So what do you think it is in a nutshell? Do you think it's just like the mechanics of the new installment?
Maybe. I think some of it is like I have to get good, because there is an element of that in this franchise. They give you a number of different ways to customize the gameplay so that it works for you. So I can make it as easy or as difficult as I'd like it to be. And I've tried both, and I still suck. And outside of that too, like there's this one part where like if you're playing like the bases, right? Like let's say I'm a first baseman, and I'll get the ball hit towards me, and I'll tag out the runner on first, and then like maybe I'll have somebody on second that's running to third base. So as soon as you get your out, it'll swing you over and show you that somebody is running to the next base. And what you have to do is you have a circle, and you have your analog stick, and you have to match the circle with your analog stick before you throw the ball. And like my brain will just short circuit, and I'll be like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Oh, fuck. And then I'll just press the button, and it'll just like go into the stands. So I got a long way to go with this game. I'm enjoying it. It's not perfect, but it is fun.
It sounds like you just need to spend more time with it.
I think so.
I think that's what it is. I wouldn't write it off too early. It sounds like you're not. It sounds like you're going to spend more time with it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear like a second, review or like a second first impressions in maybe a couple weeks or so.
Yeah, I think once I get Bioshock out of the way, I'll probably focus on it a little bit more than I have. I've really only played maybe 5 hours or so consistently,
All right.
And I'm having a blast with it, but I got a long way to go.
Sounds like it, but that's okay. I mean, those kind of games, the longevity is kind of insane, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
A game like that, shouldn't it really last at least a few years, and before you're really kind of ready to move on?
I mean, they support the roster changes, I believe, up to 2 years after the game is released.
Okay.
And then from there, I think they do stop updating the rosters. So I could theoretically continue to play this game for, at least a couple years. But this is on Game Pass, so I'm very curious to see whether or not MLB The Show 22 is also on Game Pass and replaces 21. I'm kind of hoping that's the case. I think they've set a precedent here. If not, I probably won't buy 22. It depends. I'll have to think about it because, these games usually later on in the season, they drop in price to about $30. And I think it's worth owning, like if you like baseball, I think it's a game worth owning. But I'm not sure what they're going to do with it, like if they're planning on having this a thing every year on Game Pass.
I don't know. I sometimes wonder about sports games, kind of piggybacking off what Jimmy said.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a lot of experience with them because I'm not a sports guy, but I do know that there's a new Madden every goddamn year, last time I checked. And sometimes it seems like most of these sports franchise games, there is a new game every year, and I don't know if that's such a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't think it's a bad thing if there is competition, because then it forces these games to kind of look at themselves and innovate. But when you're the only NFL game, like Madden is, or you're the only baseball game, like The Show is, that gives an opportunity for the developers to kind of rest on their laurels. Madden is a massively popular franchise. It sells millions of copies every year. And while the game is not for me, football is crazy popular, and there are a lot of gamers that buy an Xbox or a PlayStation, they buy Madden, and they don't play anything else for a year. And then the next Madden comes out and they buy it. And
that is so accurate.
You used to work at Babbage's, right?
No, I worked at EB Games.
EB, I'm sorry. So, how many guys did you come in? You see them once. They want Madden.
Oh, yeah. Even though that was back in 04, I still remember that. I still remember, there were dudes that, quite honestly, just didn't look like they ever played a video game in their life. And they'd come in and be like, Madden, whatever. And then they'd leave.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just dedicated. And there's people I've met in my personal life that are like that are just people that you would never think are gamers. And they're not really, but they are dedicated to that one particular game. And it's something they fire up on the weekends, weekend warrior style.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, weekend warrior. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if that's your thing, that's totally fine. But that's the state of the sports games in a nutshell. There's these top games, and then there's pretty much nothing else, and it's kind of disappointing. So hopefully, with the show being on Xbox, MLB, will see how well it does, and then they'll start awarding the licenses to other developers and try and push the envelope a little bit.
It's a good route to take.
So, all right, let's move on to our next topic. Where are we going with next here? We got a whole list, man.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat, the new movie. They released the first 7 minutes.
Yep. Well, the full movie is out. It came out, I think, Friday.
This is true.
Yeah.
I watched the first 7 minutes. I think it was yesterday, and I was pretty impressed. I recognized the actor. I'm guessing it's Scorpion. I recognized him from some other films. But yeah, I was impressed. There was some stuff that was kind of expected. Yeah. Some dialogue that was just kind of like, it could be better, but this is still a Mortal Kombat movie. And it's not directed by anybody, like James Cameron here. So can't expect much. But what I did see music-wise, and also just the way that it was shot, filmed, and the action sequences were very impressive. What are your initial thoughts on this?
If I had less going on over this weekend, I would have watched the entire thing already. I'm stoked. I can't wait to see it. And that first 7 minutes was exactly what I wanted. I will admit that I've seen a couple people talk about the movie already, and it's got me a little concerned. I think
both, man.
I think my expectations for the movie have been a little bit higher than they should be. As last son of Bob just said in the Twitch chat, lower your level of stoke. And that's fair. But, as we discussed when we were talking about Street Fighter for the Patreon, I thoroughly enjoy bad movies. So if this is in fact a bad movie, I'm ready, willing, and able to watch it.
Gummy bears and all.
Gummy bears and all, and beers.
That works too.
Oh,
Bad combination, but
well, yeah, not at the same time, maybe.
yeah, not at the same time. One or the other.
But yeah, man, like that fight sequence. Well, there really wasn't much of a fight sequence there, but that whole intro, just like, oh man, it looked badass.
It looked good, dude. It was wildly violent, which in some ways it should be. I mean, this is Mortal Kombat. The games are horrifically gory.
Yes.
So I think fans are expecting that, and I think we got it at least in that first 7 minutes.
Oh yeah.
What we see of Sub-Zero looks pretty interesting, and we're seeing these guys essentially out of costume, I guess, in the first 7 minutes. So it's not like you're just expecting them to be in their traditional outfits, because you're not going to find that there.
Right.
But yeah, man, I'm a big music guy, and I was really impressed with the score that you could hear playing. I thought it was really well done. It reminded me of something like really epic, like Last Samurai or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or something of that nature. So that kind of won me over immediately. And then the cinematography is actually quite good, and I wasn't expecting it to be that good for a movie such as this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're paying a lot of attention to the source material and trying to honor, at least in the first 7 minutes that we saw, we're just trying to honor the roots of the story, which I give, a ton of credit to. But it also seems like it's been made by fans, not just guys that are like loosely familiar with the source material and trying to cash in per the direction of, a studio. So
Yeah.
hopefully this will be true. Hopefully hopefully the movie will live up to the game and the standards the game has set, as questionable as those may be at times. but
Yes.
But I mean, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm glad that I didn't just jump right in, because I have to admit, after seeing that 7-minute sequence, I was super excited to watch that movie in its entirety, and my level of hype was through the roof, and I've, sat back, I've watched some people talk about it, and I think my expectations have been tempered to a more appropriate level.
Yeah, I think it makes you wonder who's giving the bad reviews or the slightly negative reviews to this movie, because if you're going into this expecting, James Cameron, Chris Nolan quality here,
Right.
like I just don't know why you would ever think that, because if you've seen the original films, especially Annihilation, then you're going to expect that this movie's going to have some cheese to it.
Yeah.
And quite a good amount of it. And even though it's coming out in 2021 and we've got Mehcad Brooks playing Jax and some, well-known actors, it still doesn't matter, man.
Right.
If you're gonna walk away and this thing was captivating and riveting, then that's something to talk about. But expect it to have some cheese.
Yeah. I mean, it is still Mortal Kombat, the movie based on the
Right.
video game.
Right. Like, it's a video game movie.
Right.
This is all about our Patreon, which will, fans will listen to later on. But the point of the matter is, it's a video game movie, and most people know that video game movies are not exactly riveting.
Right.
So if you can get that, digested, then you should be fine.
Yep. Agreed. Speaking of video game movies, you dropped a link in our show notes about a Ghost of Tsushima movie, which I don't know how this slipped under my radar. This was announced last month.
Slipped under my radar too, friend.
Go on. Tell me more.
So I only found out about it from a different podcast excerpt that I was listening to recently. And they were kind of complaining that there are more video game movies that are coming out that shouldn't come out. The guy's argument behind this is that this game is based on samurai films, and now they want to make a film about a game that's based on samurai films. And I thought about that, and I was like, that is potentially really redundant. But then it made me think, should we be expecting and be excited for video game movies in general, or should we not? Should we let them die out? All the ones that we saw in the 80s and 90s, like, is that the run of them, and should we just move on? Or should we expect things like this and maybe a Last of Us movie that has been hinted around. I know they're coming out with that series. And we heard about some casting with that. But yeah, I mean, overall, I haven't read this particular article, but it's a game that I'm still highly interested in. I've played, a few hours back when it came out, and I did really enjoy it.
Mm,
So it's hard for me to say right now if this is worth, creating a film for.
right.
But sometimes I do worry that they are taking games that should be left as a game and trying to turn it into something more like a series or a movie. And I think in some cases it may work. But in this particular case, it has made me a little pensive about the whole situation.
I think it's worth noting too that this is going to be directed by Chad Stahelski. Am I saying that properly?
Who knows?
He is responsible for directing the first 3 John Wick films, and he is in the process of shooting John Wick 4.
Mm.
This
I mean,
guy,
I like John Wick.
John Wick is great, and if I'm not mistaken, this guy had made a career out of being a stuntman before he went on to direct stunt movies for stuntmen. He's the kind of guy. It's like listening to like a musician that's like, oh, he's a guitarist. This guy's like a stuntman. Those John Wick movies are just jaw dropping. So if he can make a samurai film out of that and make it based on a video game, sign me the fuck up.
Might work, man. I mean, you've got the right guy at the head seat there, apparently.
Yeah.
We have to trust in that based on the John Wick films. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about it. I just worry. I worry a lot when it comes to a movie based on a game. And, for good reason. I'm sure most people do.
Well,
but if you go in with that cheese mindset, I guess you're okay.
I mean, all you have to do is look on the IMDb page or Rotten Tomatoes and just look at the average scores for every film directed by Uwe Boll. Oh, God.
I don't know if I should or not.
3.5, 2.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That's your future, Will. That's what's coming up.
That's my future. I don't know, man. If they make it like IP Man or Ip Man, I still don't know how to say it, but those films were really good. And
They were.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, films like that were executed well. So if they can do something that kind of marries that with maybe The Last Samurai, it might work.
Yeah.
But I think you need that right chemistry to get it to be delivered in such a way that's going to represent the game as well as the game represented it.
I'm thrilled that martial arts movies have kind of taken the turn that they have over the past like 10 to 15 years. Like if you think about it, like we were just talking about how great the 80s were and the 90s were for martial arts films, but they were cheesy. Those fights weren't like realistic. And not that like in a real fight everybody is, fucking kung fu master. But I think that stuntmen and stunt women have really developed what we perceive as a martial arts movie into just something that's just brutal and fast and jaw-dropping in a way that just didn't exist 20 years ago.
It didn't, because you either had the Van Damme stuff or you had the really Asian heavy martial arts films, which are fantastic, but you had to be okay with subtitles and dubs and situations that had storylines that were sometimes a little hard to follow.
Right.
You could take a movie like Hero. It's like watching art just come to life, but it's not for everybody. It's a little bit more of a slow burn, and it's not really that accessible as something like John Wick. So I think when John Wick came around, even though it's not martial arts, it's similar because some of those moves are used, and even same with Ip Man or IP Man. Those movies are just done in a slightly more digestible way for the Western side of the world.
Have you ever checked out The Raid?
Oh yeah.
Oof.
Vic told me about The Raid, and then I watched The Redemption, which is I think part 2. I liked the first one more, but man, those movies were terrific.
Just like I can't tell you how many times I'm watching one of those fights and just like cringe, like oh god, that stairwell, oh my god.
Unbelievable. And you're right, like they were so heavy hitting, those movies, these newer ones.
Yeah.
And the sense of impact is so much higher than what you had with Van Damme, Seagal, and Jackie Chan and Jet Li and all those kind of guys.
Yep. It's just a different style, but I'm really digging it. I'm glad things have kind of gone in that direction. I don't know if it's sustainable, but I'm with it.
I think that's just it, man. Is it sustainable?
Right.
That might be a good way to wrap that up.
All right, so tell me about Returnal. That's coming out soon, right? Or is it out already?
I don't think it's out. I could be wrong, but I have not been keeping that much of a Hawkeye on this game, but I have been keeping it on my radar very close. It's a game that is completely original, as far as I know. It's not based on anything, so that's always a good thing. And it's a PS5 exclusive, and it just looks incredible. It's a game that I've had my eye on since its original debut. And with the gameplay that I've seen recently, which is I think Sunday or Saturday, it just looks really, really outstanding and so fresh. And I think that's exactly what we need right now on both sides of the coin when it comes to Xbox and PS5. So here's what I know. It's developed by Housemarque, which developed a game called Resogun, which was a launch game, I believe, for the PS4. And I think it was a PS Plus game.
Okay.
I think that was the only way that you could get it. And it was just like almost like a side-scrolling, somewhat 3D shooter, like a spaceship shooter thing, kind of like Super Stardust HD, similar to that kind of thing.
Okay.
And a lot of people were playing it when the PS4 came out because it was like one of the few games that was actually good. And what's interesting about Returnal is people are saying like, "Hey, if you're a Housemarque fan, you're gonna love this game." But then I think, well, what else has Housemarque made besides Resogun? So how could you take a game that's wildly different than Returnal and then say, "Oh yeah, that'll translate well. It's a totally different game."
Right.
I feel like, it would make sense if you said, "Hey, if you like Kojima games, you're going to like Death Stranding." Even though it's different, it still has a lot of Metal Gear aspects to it, so it's a little bit more translatable.
Okay.
So with Returnal, I just think it looks really cool. It has a lot of references to the Alien films, from what I understand, as well as what was that film, Prometheus?
Yep.
So I think it's going to be really paying a lot of tribute to the fans of that sort of sci-fi genre and those films. So I think it's going to be up Damien's alley. I think it's going to be up your alley. And I'm not a big sci-fi guy, but this game just looks like something that you don't want to pass on.
Yeah, I'm watching the IGN link that you shared with me. And again, sorry for those in the Twitch stream that are unable to see this. It looks like my kind of jam. It definitely looks like a cross between Alien and Prometheus by proxy. And I'm getting kind of like a Lost Planet vibe from it as well too, which isn't a bad thing. Lost Planet was a pretty good game, a pretty good franchise. Now I'm seeing like this woman like walking down a hallway, which is kind of weird. I don't know what's going on. I gotta pause this. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. This is definitely a case where I wish I had a PS5, and it's the type of game that when I do get a PS5, I will probably pick up.
Yeah, and it's like I think you and I are on the same page with this. Like we don't really know much about it, but I don't know if that really matters. I think the gameplay that's there is enough to kind of gauge some interest.
Yeah.
And because it looks so wholly original and fresh, I think that's appealing, at least for me.
Yeah. Let's see here. There's a note on this article about the DualSense as well too.
I'm sure it's going to utilize that well.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to be kind of mixing in not only just the haptic feedback, but also the 3D audio with the controller. So there you go, man.
I mean, they ought to. I heard that the PlayStation 5 headset that they released, I don't know if it has a name, but that one is supposed to be quite impressive.
I'm not sure, but I've heard good things about that as well.
Yeah. Have you, just kind of segue, have you heard about any PS5s coming back into stock?
I haven't looked, quite honestly. Sony has just really mishandled that whole situation. Every once in a while, I'll see, like, on Wario64's Twitter handle, Twitter page, he'll post up something. It's like, oh, yeah, they're in stock. And then, like, literally less than 5 minutes later, they're gone. So
I think at this point, like, if anybody's listening and they want to help me out, and I appreciate that, only send me something if there's, like, actual news about them coming back into stock where they're actually attainable, because I just don't know if I'm going to have that kind of time to just randomly drop everything I'm doing in the middle of a workday and queue up like some sort of queue. I just don't think I can do it.
That's the whole problem, man. By the time you find out that there's a queue, it's already sold out.
Oh yeah, I mean the last time I found out, Zach was nice enough to tell me about it, but I was leaving work. I was in charge of driving that night, and I couldn't drive. I had to immediately say, "Hey Lauren, do you mind driving?" She had to adjust all the seat configurations in the car because it was my car, and yeah, it was just awkward. It was stressful. He couldn't secure one. I couldn't either, and I was just kind of bummed. But at that point, since I had tried so many times, I was like, "Fuck it," you know.
Hmm.
I really might just have to wait until they are actually going to be stocked normally.
Yeah. It's
So hopefully sometime this year. I mean, dude, can you imagine if I still couldn't secure one this entire year? I mean, I doubt that that's going to happen, but at the rate we're going, I mean, it's almost May.
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of absurd.
I mean, you could always just settle and get an Xbox.
Oh man. Oh man, that train's never late.
Oh man. But seriously though, until they can resolve the issues with the chip shortages, I don't think we're really going to see PlayStation 5s just sitting at your local Best Buy anytime soon.
No, and that's what I want. I'm old school, man. I want to be able to walk into a Best Buy or a Target, go to the video game section, maybe ask somebody to go behind the glass the glass case and open it up for me and hand me one and
Mm,
walk up front, pay for it, and walk out.
yep.
That's always been my sort of steez on that, and I can't do that.
Mm.
I just want one, Drew. God damn it!
I know, man.
Somebody make it happen.
I know.
I'm having a moment. I'm past the moment now, though. That was it. It was just I had a small fire that just let loose. I apologize, but yeah. What else we got?
CD Projekt Red. They have refunded 30,000 copies of Cyberpunk 2077 out of 13 million, and they still turned a profit.
How do you feel about this, man? I mean, I read this and I was like, is this enough in terms of like a sort of apology? And is this the right thing to do?
What apology? I mean,
Well, I mean, okay. Okay, you got me there.
I mean, they apologized on camera and took some level of responsibility, and they've been putting out patches, week after week. And some of them are extensive. There was one person that took the patch notes and turned it into a Star Wars crawler.
Oh my God.
The intro Star Wars going up the screen.
The original?
The original, yeah. Well,
Oh yeah, the crawler, yeah.
the crawler at the beginning of the movie.
The credits, yeah.
They did that with it, and it was absurdly long, and it just kept going and going.
My word. That's not a good sign, man. I know people are gonna toy and tinker with things, but like that's just kind of like I'm gonna like moon you.
Kind of, yeah.
I'm gonna moon Cyberpunk and I'm gonna moon CD Projekt Red. That's kind of what I see
Funny
that
way
as.
to put it, yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of that. Like it's cheeky.
I mean,
No
look,
pun intended.
when I haven't played the game since January, I want to say. I decided to back off and give them some time to fix it, and then I figure I'll jump back in, and I've stepped away from it, and I haven't really thought about it very much, and I'm sure at some point, I'll probably circle back and put it back in, but there's so much shit for me to play. I'm not missing it. I don't regret not getting a refund, right? Because that's on me. I bought the game, I pre-ordered it, I bought a physical copy. And I do want to play it. I enjoyed the small amount of time that I did spend with the game. It was buggy, but it wasn't like game breaking for me. But there were just some things that were just unforgivable, like the AI behavior of the police, for example. Allegedly, some of that has been addressed. Like I read in the last patch, the cops, like if you're on a rooftop and you fire a gun, the cops don't just magically teleport back up onto the rooftop next to you. So that's an improvement, but they're still like miraculously spawning out of seemingly nowhere. Like if you're in the desert, hundreds of miles away from town, and you break a law, the cops find you. How?
Do you think that it may be safe to say at this point that the game is so broken within the code itself, like the vanilla original code, that the only way to truly fix this would be to scrap the whole thing and start from scratch.
I think that's possible.
Because I feel like they're so buried in there, they're buried in the registry of the game that it may be too difficult for them to weed them all out.
Yeah, I mean, but how do you like just start over with something that you spent 7 years developing?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And I think that that's why that statement is outlandish as it is. And it could be accurate, but that's a terrifying accurate statement, because if that really is the reality, then that means that this game will be forever broken.
It happens, you know. There are games that are just unpatchable, or for whatever reason the patches are abandoned. They can't realistically support this game forever. I know that they've spent a lot of time patching up The Witcher 3 to bring that game to the glory that it currently is. I'd like to think that they're able to do it with Cyberpunk, but I don't know that that's going to happen, and I don't know that I care anymore either.
Mm-hmm.
If that,
I can't blame you.
It's like they had their opportunity to grab me, and they didn't. They lost that.
Best case scenario is they might be able to get to Skyrim's potential, where Skyrim is still a broken game. Like, there's still bugs.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say broken, but there are still bugs. But they're so minor that, like, it's very passable. Like, you could just look past them.
Well,
so maybe that's where Cyberpunk could get. And if that's the case, I think it's going to be a very playable game.
I think a good example of this is Outriders. Outriders is riddled with bugs, right? But none of them are game breaking. None of them are so bad that they take away from the fun of the game. The core gameplay works. The core gameplay is satisfying. It's fun to play. Yes, there are a ton of graphical errors. I see tearing on my screen all the time. Hell, in the fucking beginning of the game, when you boot it up, there's a People Can't Fly logo and the Square Enix logo. There's screen tearing on that, on the Xbox. Ugh. Right? Like, come on. Like, why? Why is that happening?
Why is right.
But it doesn't take away from my enjoyment of the game. And I think that is the most important part. The stuff that needs to work, works. And the stuff that's buggy, I can work around it. I can deal with it. So yeah. I don't mind bugs. Like, I get that video games can and usually are glitchy to some degree. Sometimes those glitches can be fun. Sometimes you can take them and exploit them and do some crazy shit with them.
Yeah.
Destiny's Loot Cave is a prime example of that. People had a blast with that. I had a blast just standing there shooting at a hole for like hours on end. And I know Saikoro will remember that too, man. We had a lot of good time just sitting there looting that cave. But
I'll tell you, Skyrim had one where you could open up a book, and every time you opened it, like, there are certain books you can open in the game and it will level up a stat because you like read the book. And there was a bug where you could just read the same book over and over and just watch your level just keep on increasing. And I was just like, for like half an hour. And I remember so many people were doing it, and I was in an Xbox, chat room, like a party on the 360 at the time when the game was out. And this is like 2011. And I remember sitting in there with this dude, Mike, and 3 other people. And we were just sitting there, like, chatting about, like, whatever, as we were just opening and closing this book, all of us at the same time. And then
hilarious. Sometimes
somebody would be like, dude, you at 100 yet? And then they fixed that one pretty quick.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I still subscribe to the Cyberpunk subreddit. I still like to keep tabs on what's going on. I don't fault anybody that thoroughly enjoys it. I know there are some people that have just poured their heart and soul into that game and had an absolute wonderful time. I know Saikoro's one of them. He's talked about that game very positively and beat it thoroughly inside and out on his Twitch stream. And that's awesome. Like, that's great. But my backlog is so vast that I need to focus on games that are actually playable before I can focus on ones that aren't. And I'm okay with that. So I've put it aside. Maybe someday I'll pick it up again. And if I don't, well, I guess that leads us into our next topic of conversation, doesn't it?
It does. And when you mentioned vast, I thought about the blue ocean. The vast blue ocean of our backlogs.
Ah, yes.
I mean, I don't know what ocean is bigger, but you're definitely in the larger waters
I am
compared to me.
swimming in. This is just one portion. To my left, there's a whole nother bookshelf that is out of frame. That is full of disc-based games, most of which I've never played.
Dude, I had this really sort of weird mental image just now of you on a piece of driftwood in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And you're just like, I cannot get to shore. I just cannot. If a helicopter does not come and save me, I will be on this driftwood
Yeah.
for a long time. And I think a lot of gamers feel that way. And you and I have talked about this so many times. It's a big trend with our show. It's a big trend with gamers, and for good reason. And I think initially it became this sort of cult thing where you would talk about it with your friends. You're like, dude, I got this, like, I guess you could call it like a backlog, and that's where it sort of started. And then when the game sales kind of started becoming more popular, these backlogs became very real for a lot of people. And we're now seeing articles almost every month
Right.
talking about how to deal with it. And some of them are incredibly helpful, actually, navigating back to shore.
So this topic kind of got spurred by a article from Kotaku from Friday morning, and the title of that is "Sometimes You Just Have to Let Backlog Games Go." And thank you for sharing this with me, because I thought it was an interesting read.
Oh yeah, I saw that title, dude, and I was like, favorited, like immediately. Whether it's talked about on the show or not, we need to address this.
Yeah. So one thing that I've done with 2021 in gaming is I've started tracking the games that I've started and the games that I've finished, and I've put I set up what program is called Airtable, right? And it's designed very similar to Microsoft Excel, but instead of using cells just to carry information or formulas, it actually builds a database out of that information. So anybody that's worked with spreadsheets on Excel or Google Sheets, you can do some crazy shit with those things. But at the core, it's not a database that you can truly manipulate. Airtable actually builds a database. So I have the date that I started a game, the system that I'm playing it on. I put cover art, I'll rate them. And then I have like a whole series of filters that I use on whether or not I've beaten the game. And I think my criteria is either I have completed, in progress. I'm going to bring it up now.
Do it.
I should really have this ready because I'm talking about it. Let's see here. Airtable.com. It's a cool site if you ever want to check it out and just kind of play around with it. Some really crazy shit you can do. But let's see here. So, group by status. So yeah, I have in progress, I have endless, I have backlogged, I have completed, and I have abandoned. Those are my 5 statuses that I use. So in progress is a game that I've started, that I intend on playing through, or maybe I haven't made a decision about yet, right? Endless is for those games that really don't truly have an ending. Puzzle games. Tetris Effect, for example. Yes, I could beat that game, but it's kind of an endless game, right?
Yeah.
Backlogged is for those games that I've started and then for whatever reason just put down, right? Cyberpunk is one of those games. Falconeer is another example. And then completed is pretty self-explanatory, but then we have abandoned. Those are those games where I just said, you know what? I'm not going back to this. I'm done.
It's liberating.
It is. Right now the only game that I have in abandoned is Cyber Shadow. Cyber Shadow, I just hit a wall with it. I got too frustrated and I decided enough's enough. But I'm thinking about moving games like the Falconeer over to abandoned because I haven't played the Falconeer in quite some time. And while I enjoyed it, it just didn't grab me the way I was hoping it would, and I have other games that are doing a better job of that,
Yeah. I may have thought of an analogy or a real life situation that you could apply to your life, not you, but gamers in general, in terms of fixing the backlog mentality or falling deeper into it going forward. So when you buy toothpaste, a lot of times you buy the one that you know that works well, yet there's many selections to choose from, which can be overwhelming. Do I want the extra white? Do I want the Colgate? Whatever. But you ever notice how you don't buy all of them, you only buy one?
Right.
And I wonder if that's a good way to, if we could channel our inner toothpaste selection skills to how we approach buying games going forward. So you're not buying 5 at a time, which we often do because of a good sale. And then therefore we're diving deeper into the Pacific Ocean.
So I hear you.
It's a fucking weird analogy, dude. It was a random shower thought that came on air, and I was like, I don't know if this is tried and true. I haven't thought this out enough, but I'm going to go with it.
See, like, I don't wait till I run out of toothpaste before I buy another tube. Because I don't want to be trying to brush my teeth and there's no toothpaste.
I guess what I'm saying is the way that I thought about it is that I generally will buy the same toothpaste every time because I know it works well. So I wonder if that could be applied to, I'm going to buy the games that I know will work well for my kind of game, if that makes sense. It's a terrible analogy.
This is really bad. I'm trying to recover for you, and I can't.
You don't have to. Just let me drown. Let me drown in the Pacific Ocean like I should. But no, I don't know, man. I just thought, like, what are some situations in life where you buy something that you know you like? You know, you're either a Kraft Blue Box guy or you like Annie's. So do we think differently about the games that we buy going forward? Like we take more time thinking about it. You know, instead of just acting on impulse and acting on like, oh, this is $7 and it looks kind of cool. Should we be taking more time to think about, is this game going to be something I would really enjoy? Should we take more time to research the game before we pull the trigger on buying it?
Well, to be fair, none of the games that I've backlogged or abandoned are games that I didn't think I would want to play. You know, like Cyberpunk, I fully expected to enjoy the shit out of that, but it was broken. The Falconeer kind of, you know, okay, maybe that was taking a chance. But a lot of this stuff too, like in my case, a lot of these games are Game Pass games. So I'm not really paying anything extra. There's an incentive to just try them because you never know what you're going to like Haven,
Sure.
Donut County. You know, those are great examples. Call of the Sea. I wouldn't have bought those games. But they
Sample buffet.
But they were on Game Pass. They were free, and I enjoyed them thoroughly, you know. We got a lot of great feedback in the Twitch chat too, as well. I want to hit a couple of these. Epic Outro says he found a compromise. If you can't play through a backlog game, watch a playthrough on YouTube. Son of a Bitch says, you know you have a backlog when you don't touch your backlog, but will dedicate time to making a spreadsheet about your backlog.
That is so accurate.
Last Son of Bob is staring in Nier Automata.
I was just thinking about that game too.
And looks like you have a new podcast called Shower Thoughts. So
that would be an interesting one, man.
Oh, man. You can do little 10-second segments on YouTube. Will's Shower Thoughts.
Yeah.
Video games are like toothpaste. There's our show. That's the show title right there.
It's
Video games are like
Bees or Tom's.
Video games are I got to write this down. Toothpaste. This is why we don't get anybody listening to our show. All right.
Oh my god.
But I mean, like, I think sticking to your quote unquote lane is a dangerous precedent because we're talking about those guys that all they buy is Madden.
You're closing the door on yourself.
You're closing the door. Yeah. I mean, if all you played were Metal Gear Solid games or Dark Soul type games, you would have missed out on Grease. You would have missed out on Transistor and
100%.
and Limbo and Journey and all these fantastic indie experiences. But you were willing to try them to see if they would click for you. And I guess if we dive in deep, maybe there's an overarching theme there with the types of games. You know, they all have some sort of a emotional connection to the player that isn't really resolved or revealed initially, right? Mm-hmm. But would you have found that out, like, if you hadn't experienced it for yourself? Like, is that something that a review would have told you enough about?
I'm glad you brought this up because that is the other side of the coin, you know, and it's really important to kind of talk about that side of the coin because it's so relevant. I mean, if you do close that door on yourself and you say, I'm only going to stick with stealth games or I'm going to stick with action games because that's what I generally enjoy, you won't have those experiences like you mentioned that I had with Grace and Transistor, for example. I think the nature of being a gamer, especially in today's world, is you have to take some chances. And when you take those chances, you may lose some money if you want to
Sure.
look at it that way. But do you want to look at it in a negative aspect or say, you know what? It wasn't for me, and that's okay. But I signed up for this. I put my hand in the hat with the random numbers. I pulled something out. It wasn't the winning number, and that's part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if you can get behind that mentality, it becomes a little easier to deal with those games that you essentially will abandon, you know?
I think,
I think it's just perspective, I guess.
in a way, I feel like this kind of ties into our discussion last week about Days Gone and John Garvin talking about sales killing the industry. And, both of us kind of argued in favor of sales, giving us an opportunity to play games that we wouldn't have otherwise played. And, sales are the perfect opportunity for gamers to branch out of their comfort zone and try something new that they wouldn't have otherwise tried. So for me, I remember Joe was really harping on us to try Sayonara Wild Hearts. And I said, I'm not going to pay full price for this. I'm going to buy it on sale.
Same.
And I stuck to my guns, and, it wasn't a game that I really identified with. And I know you didn't identify with it either. If I had paid full price for that, I really would have been disappointed. Right.
Yes.
I think I was less disappointed that I bought it on sale and didn't like it. But sometimes you buy something on sale and it knocks you out of the park too. And then, of course, the downside of all these sales, especially on Steam or on like the Switch eShop and even Xbox and PlayStation too. They have all these great deals. You buy all these games and then they just sit there forever unbeaten.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're getting closer, man. We may be getting closer to the answer to all of this. And I really think that we're almost there. Because it kind of is like a code to crack, What's causing this? Why have we gotten ourselves into this position? Is it our fault? Is it the industry's fault? Who's to blame? And I don't know if there necessarily is anybody to blame. I just think that we have a large selection of content out there. And we generally want to dabble in a lot of it because that's just what we do. And it's what you sign up for. And if you can see it from a positive perspective and not so much of a burden, then I think it makes things a lot easier. I guess I'll leave it at that, at least for now.
I would just say that if you're playing a game and you're either not having fun with it or you step away from it and play something else and come back and just don't come back to it, don't be afraid to abandon it. Just put it away. It's fine. Yeah. It's fine. You never have to feel guilty about it. I don't feel guilty about abandoning Cyber Shadow. I wanted to like that game. I really did. But I walked away from it. I erased it from my mind. I said, I'm done with this game. And it's been out of my mind. I forgot that I abandoned it. And that's been a pretty liberating thing.
Well, that's just it, man. You kind of mentioned coming to terms with things and having this sort of intervention with yourself, as ridiculous as that sounds. But it's important because you and I have had to have those interventions with each other and ourselves. And many other gamers are like, where they said, you know what? It's okay. Yeah. It's okay that I didn't like this game. But, when you're a good person and you work hard and you choose to use your money wisely and you're dumping it into something like gaming, you want to get your money's worth. And sometimes it does hurt a little bit when you spend $40 on a game and it's not great, It's hard to wrap your head around that sometimes, but it gets easier. It gets easier as you just keep pressing on and you get smarter. That's all.
I think that's the key. You just have to get smarter about what works for you.
Yeah.
So, well, that brings us to the last of our list here. So we're done for the night. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about before we wrap things up for the evening?
I'm glad that Data Dive likes Asura's Wrath.
Yes. Yeah, me too. I've never played it, but that's great.
It's a great game. Great game. I'll leave it at that.
Saikuro also notes, ask Tyler Durden, the backlog you own ends up owning you. Well,
he would say that. If he was a real character, he would say that.
That's why I'm owning the backlog. By telling it to abandon. or something. I don't know. I'm tired, bro. Will, this is your last episode in this room.
Yes.
Take a look around. Wave goodbye. Next week, you will be broadcasting from a brand new, awesome studio. We have to.
Dude, I cannot wait.
We have to give the studio a name.
We do. And, honestly, man, and I still might do this, and Lauren might kill me.
Oh, boy.
I might put like an on-air sign on the outside of the door that's like wireless or something, where it just sticks to the wall and I could flip a switch and it says on air. But I feel like she might kill me for that one. Because it's going to be in the living room. Like,
Right.
It's not going to be like, down a hallway or something. So while she's watching TV, she's probably going to, out of the right corner of her eye, see like a bright red sign that says on air. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do something more subtle. Maybe I won't do that at all. But
Just
we'll
get a
see.
light,
But
like a red light bulb. Just put it outside the door.
just something, man.
Something.
Something to let her know. It's either that or it's going to be like, hey, I'm on air, so don't say anything for an hour. All right, see ya. Which is generally how it used to be. But
Yeah.
honestly, man, I had a pretty good time in this room. I wasn't in this room for long. Most of the show was always performed downstairs when we did audio, and then when we did video, I started downstairs, and that was kind of a hassle with the cats, and then I moved up here. So it's been a good transition, and it's like a little taste, or like a little preamble, if you will, of the new studio. So
I'm gonna miss seeing that fan above your head.
yeah, and there's the little fire detector. We've got a little frame on the wall. We got a regular window, a white door. It's exhilarating stuff.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the new studio, once it's all set up, which shouldn't take long, I'm very excited. I could probably even do some green screen stuff, some cool stuff in the background.
Nice.
I'm gonna have a lot more flexibility.
I like it. Well, if somebody would like to check out your studio creations, how can they find you?
SoundCloud.com/Will_Gear. And once my YouTube gets a little bit more refined, I'll start chilling that as well.
Sounds good. You can find me on Twitter at ScienceStorm, sharing photos from baseball games and pastrami sandwiches, other weird ramblings. Of course, we are on the web at www.wdgrpodcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at WDGR Podcast. We're on Discord. There's a link for that in the show notes. Our Patreon launches May 1st. You will be able to sign up. Technically, you can sign up right now, but you'll get charged for nothing. We have nothing to give you right now. So don't sign up right now.
You couldn't have said it any better, man.
We're just going to take...
absolutely seriously.
If you go sign up right now, we're going to take your money, and then you're going to get charged again on May 1st. So do not sign up right now.
Yeah,
but
we don't want to do that.
The only way we could start setting up for May 1st is if we launch the page. So please, just hold on to your $5. Don't give us that $5. But in all seriousness, though, we think you guys will enjoy the Patreon if you choose to sign up. If you'd like to support the site, we'd be grateful for it. But as I said in our Discord earlier today, we don't expect you to. Don't feel obligated. People got shit going on. They got bills to pay. Maybe it's just not in the budget, or maybe you just don't want to. Like, that's cool. Like, we're all adults, and we're still going to bring you the same awesome content right here every week. Twitch.tv/WDGR podcast. Of course, you can catch us on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you download and listen to your podcast.
Love it.
So that'll do it for us. We will see you next week from Will's brand new studio. We got to come up with some kind of cool name. We're taking submissions for the new studio name in the Discord room. Swing on by and let us know the best one. Will's going to have to call it that. I'm saying it right now. He doesn't have a choice. He's going to call it that.
I was going to say, I didn't subscribe to this, but that's hey, look, you wrote that contract for me. Apparently I've signed it. Hopefully there's like a prenup or something. I don't know.
Listen, you're the one that started calling this a GameStop, and I've owned it, so
that's fair. That is fair. You have owned it, and I'm proud of you. So we will come up with something. Bring on the submissions, folks.
Oh, goodness. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Take care.